The massive space station hung in the darkness like a glowing jewel. It orbited around Zentara Prime, a peaceful world that belonged to no single alien race. This was the home of the Galactic Council, where 47 different species came together to make decisions that affected the entire galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the gleaming corridors of the station. His boots made soft sounds on the smooth metal floor. Around him, dozens of alien beings moved about their daily business. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Jake still felt surprised when he saw them, even after 2 years of diplomatic work. Jake was not alone. Behind him walked Dr. Lisa Carter, a brilliant scientist with short brown hair and tired eyes. She carried a datapad filled with information about humanity's greatest scientific achievement. Next to her was Commander Rita Stone, a military officer whose job was to keep everyone safe during these important meetings. They were heading to the council chamber, where representatives from all the major alien civilizations would decide humanity's fate. The humans had come here with a simple request, but Jake knew it was anything but simple. They wanted permission to test their new weapon. The council chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high that Jake could barely see it. Hundreds of seats were arranged in circles, each one designed for a different type of alien body. Some seats were filled with water for the fish-like aquarians. Others glowed with heat for the rock-based mineral lords. In the center of it all was a small platform where the humans would present their case. High Chancellor Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire sat in the largest chair. His blue skin seemed to glow under the chamber's lights, and his forearms moved gracefully as he gestured. The Zephyrians were one of the most powerful races in the galaxy. They had ruled over dozens of worlds for thousands of years, and their technology was far beyond what humans had achieved. Jake stepped onto the central platform and looked around at all the alien faces staring back at him. Some looked curious, others seemed bored, and a few appeared openly hostile. He cleared his throat and began to speak. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Jake said, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "Humanity comes before you, today with respect and hope. We have developed new technology that we believe will help us contribute to galactic peace and security." A low murmur ran through the chamber. Many of the aliens had heard about human technology before. Most of them were not impressed. Humans had only been traveling between stars for 50 years, which was nothing compared to the thousands of years that other races had been exploring space. Dr. Carter stepped forward and activated her datapad. A large holographic display appeared, above the platform showing technical diagrams and mathematical equations. "We call it the Stellar Disruption Array," she explained. "It represents a new approach to planetary defense technology." High Chancellor Vextar leaned forward in his chair. His large black eyes studied the display with interest. "And what exactly does this weapon do, Dr. Carter?" "It can neutralize planetary threats by disrupting the quantum field relationships that hold matter together at the atomic level," Lisa replied. Most of the aliens in the chamber looked confused by the technical language. A few of the more scientifically minded species, like the crystal-based Helix Confederation, began paying closer attention to the diagrams. Ambassador Kel Thara of the insect-like Kythera Collective clicked her mandibles together, which was their way of showing concern. "You speak of disrupting matter itself. This sounds like planet-killer technology to us." The chamber fell silent. Planet-killer technology was strictly regulated by the Galactic Council. Only 5 species in the entire galaxy were allowed to possess such weapons, and they could only be used under very specific circumstances. The idea that the young human race had developed their own planet killer was shocking to most of the aliens present. Jake nodded calmly. "That is correct, Ambassador Kelthera. We are requesting permission to conduct a controlled test of our planet killer technology." The silence that followed was broken by laughter. High Chancellor Vextar began chuckling, and soon many other aliens joined in. The idea that humans, with their primitive technology and short history in space, could have developed a working planet-killer weapon seemed ridiculous. "Forgive our amusement, Captain Morrison," Vextar said, wiping tears from his large eyes. But your species has been in space for such a short time. Our scientists have examined human technology, and while it shows promise, it is still centuries behind our own capabilities. Dr. Carter's face remained calm, but Jake could see a small smile at the corner of her mouth. We understand your skepticism. High Chancellor, that is precisely why we request the opportunity to demonstrate our technology. The debate that followed lasted for hours. The Zephyrian Empire strongly supported allowing the humans to conduct their test. They believed it would be educational for the younger species to see how their crude technology failed, compared to true galactic-level weaponry. Several other species agreed, thinking it would be amusing to watch human arrogance get crushed by reality. The Helix Confederation remained neutral as they usually did in council matters. Their crystal-based minds preferred to observe and analyze rather than take sides. The Cathera Collective expressed concerns about human unpredictability, but even they seemed curious about what the humans thought they had created. As the debate continued, Jake noticed that some of the smaller species were paying very close attention to Dr. Carter's technical specifications. The Twilight Runners, a race of fast-moving, intelligent mammals, seemed particularly interested in the quantum field equations. A few of the energy-based plasma lords were also studying the data with unusual focus. Finally, High Chancellor Vextar called for a vote. The chamber fell quiet as each species announced their decision. Jake held his breath as the votes were counted. 24 species voted in favor of allowing the test. 23 voted against it. By the narrowest possible margin, humanity had won permission to demonstrate their planet-killer technology. The chamber erupted in noise as aliens discussed the surprising result. Some seemed excited about the upcoming demonstration, while others appeared worried about what they had just agreed to. High Chancellor Vextar raised one of his 4 hands for silence. The Council has decided humanity will be permitted to conduct their weapons test in the Kepler 442 system, which contains only dead worlds and a dying star. All major civilizations will be invited to observe. Jake bowed respectfully to the Council. Thank you for this opportunity. We will not disappoint you. As the humans left the chamber, Dr. Carter whispered to Jake, I hope we know what we're doing. So do I, Lisa, Jake replied quietly. So do I. The Kepler 442 system was usually empty and quiet. It had 3 dead planets orbiting around a red giant star that was slowly dying. Nothing lived there. Nothing grew there. And nothing important had ever happened there. But now, just 1 month after the Galactic Council's decision, the system was filled with the largest gathering of alien warships anyone had ever seen. Admiral Greg Walker stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Liberty's Edge. Through the large windows, he could see dozens of massive alien vessels positioned throughout the system. Each ship was enormous compared to his own fleet of 12 human vessels. The alien ships gleamed with advanced technology that humanity could only dream of building. The biggest ship belonged to the Zephyrian Empire. The Eternal Dominion was 3 miles long and bristled with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Its blue hull reflected the dying light of the red giant star, making it look like a piece of the sky itself had come to watch the show. Look at the size of that thing, said Commander Rita Stone, who had come aboard the Liberty's Edge to coordinate with the alien observers. Our entire fleet could fit inside their cargo bay. Admiral Walker nodded grimly. Size isn't everything, Rita. But I'll admit it's impressive. Near the Zephyrian dreadnought, other alien fleets had taken their positions. The Cathera Collective had brought their bioship called the Living Spear. It looked more like a giant insect than a spacecraft, with a hull made from living tissue that pulsed and moved like a breathing animal. The crew inside were all connected to the ship through biological links, making them move and think as one organism. The Helix Confederation had sent their vessel called Harmonic Resonance. It was made entirely of crystal and sang with musical tones as it moved through space. The crystal beings inside could feel vibrations and energy patterns that other species couldn't detect. They had come to study the human weapon with their superior senses. All of the alien ships had positioned themselves at what they considered safe distances from the target planet. Most were about 3 light minutes away, far enough that even a massive explosion would not harm their advanced defensive systems. The aliens were confident in their technology and their understanding of how weapons worked. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, High Chancellor Vexitar watched the small human fleet with amusement. His forearms gestured as he spoke to his science officers. "Observe their primitive vessels," he said with a chuckle. "No exotic matter hulls, no quantum shields, no gravitic weapons. They look like they were built in a scrapyard." Science Officer Texanol nodded eagerly. "Our analysis shows their largest ship has less firepower than one of our escort frigates. Their so-called planet killer weapon appears to be nothing more than a collection of basic quantum generators." "Have you placed the betting pools yet?" Vexter asked. "Yes, Chancellor. Most of our crew believe the human weapon will produce a small nuclear explosion at best. A few think it might create a decent crater. Nobody believes it will actually destroy the planet." Vextar laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Excellent. This will be educational for the humans. Perhaps after they see how real weapons work, they will be more humble in their future dealings with us." Meanwhile, aboard the human research vessel Prometheus Dawn, Dr. Lisa Carter was making final preparations for the test. Her team worked quietly around her, checking calculations and calibrating equipment. The ship's laboratory was cramped compared to the vast research facilities on the alien vessels, but Carter preferred it that way. She could keep track of everything herself. Engineer Bobby Chen looked up from his control panel. "All quantum resonance. Generators are online and synchronized. The targeting system is locked onto the planet's core." Dr. Carter nodded and turned to her colleague, Dr. Tim Brooks. "Are you sure about the calculations, Tim? Once we start this, there's no way to stop it." Tim wiped sweat from his forehead. "I've checked the math 100 times, Lisa. The quantum field relationships are exactly as we predicted. The gravitational cascade should begin 17 minutes after activation. And the extent of the effect? That's the part I'm not certain about," Tim admitted. "Our computer models suggest it will be contained to the target planet, but we're dealing with forces that no one has ever manipulated before." Dr. Carter looked out the window at the dying red giant star in the distance. "Well, it's too late to back out now. Every major civilization in the galaxy is watching us." On the other side of the system, Captain Jake Morrison was meeting with alien observers who had requested to monitor the test from close range. The meeting took place aboard a neutral station that had been hastily constructed for the event. "Captain Morrison," said Ambassador Kelthera of the Cathera Collective, her insect-like mandibles clicking nervously. "Our bioship will be positioned 1 light minute from the target planet. We wish to gather detailed biological data on how your weapon affects living tissue." "That seems rather close," Jake replied diplomatically. "Are you certain your ship can handle any unexpected effects?" The ambassador's compound eyes glittered with confidence. "Captain, our bioships have survived supernovas and black hole formations. Whatever crude explosive you have created cannot harm us." A crystalline representative from the Helix Confederation chimed in with musical tones. "We, too, will observe from close range. Our sensors can detect quantum fluctuations that other species cannot perceive. We are curious to see what you believe you have accomplished." Jake nodded politely. "Of course, we welcome all observers. However, I must strongly recommend that all vessels maintain a minimum distance of 10 light minutes from the target." This suggestion was met with barely concealed laughter from the alien representatives. 10 light minutes was an enormous distance, far beyond what any known weapon could affect. The aliens interpreted this as either extreme human caution or an attempt to hide the weapon's weakness. Back on the Liberty's edge, Admiral Walker received a private communication from Dr. Carter. Her face appeared on his screen, looking worried. "Greg, I need to talk to you about something important," she said quietly. "What is it, Lisa?" "During our final tests, we discovered something we didn't expect. The quantum cascade effect might not be limited to just the target planet. If the gravitational field gets disrupted enough, it could affect the other planets in the system." Admiral Walker felt a chill run down his spine. "How bad could it get?" "In the worst-case scenario, the entire system could become unstable. The star itself might be affected, Walker looked out at the dozens of alien ships positioned throughout the system. "Lisa, there are thousands of beings out there. If something goes wrong—" "I know," she interrupted. "But we can't back down now. The Council has made its decision, and every major civilization is watching. If we refuse to demonstrate our weapon, humanity will lose all credibility in galactic politics. And if our weapon works too well, we might become the most feared species in the galaxy." Dr. Carter was quiet for a moment. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing, Greg. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned to respect humanity." As the final preparations were completed, the alien fleet settled into their observation positions. On every ship, crews gathered around viewing screens and sensor displays, eager to watch the humans embarrass themselves with their primitive technology. None of them suspected that in just a few hours, everything they thought they knew about weapons, about physics, and about humanity would change forever. The test that was supposed to demonstrate human weakness was about to reveal a capability that would terrify civilizations for generations to come. The countdown to the weapons test had begun. The morning of the test arrived with perfect timing. All alien fleets had moved into their final positions around the Kepler 442 system. The target planet, a dead world called Kepler 442c, hung in space like a gray marble. It was twice the size of Earth but had no atmosphere, no water, and no life. It seemed like the perfect target for testing a weapon. Dr. Lisa Carter sat at her control station aboard the Prometheus Dawn. Her hands moved slowly over the buttons and switches that would activate humanity's greatest scientific achievement. Around her, the research team worked quietly, their faces serious and focused. "All systems are ready," announced engineer Bobby Chen from his position at the quantum resonance generators. "The targeting computers have locked onto the planet's core." Dr. Tim Brooks checked his calculations one more time. "Gravitational field mapping is complete. The cascade effect should begin exactly 17 minutes after activation." Carter took a deep breath and opened a communication channel to all the ships in the system. Her voice was calm and professional as she spoke. "This is Dr. Carter aboard the Prometheus Dawn. We are beginning the final countdown to weapons activation. All vessels should confirm they are at safe distances." On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, High Chancellor Vexitar chuckled as he heard the human transmission. "Safe distances," he repeated to his crew. "They act as if their little device could actually threaten ships like ours." "Science officer." Texnol looked at his instruments. "We are positioned 3 light minutes from the target, Chancellor. Even if the humans somehow manage to crack the planet's surface, we are completely safe at this distance." Similar conversations were taking place on alien ships throughout the system. The crews were relaxed and confident, many of them treating the event like entertainment rather than a serious weapons demonstration. The Cathara bioship Living Spear had moved even closer to get better readings. Ambassador Calthara wanted detailed information about how human weapons affected matter at the molecular level. The ship's living hull pulsed with excitement as its biological sensors prepared to record every detail of the coming explosion. Dr. Carter's voice came over the communication system again. "Beginning weapons activation in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 activation." Carter pressed the final button. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The stellar disruption array hummed quietly as it began its work. But there were no bright lights, no massive energy beams, no spectacular displays of power. The weapon simply sent out a pulse of quantum energy that moved faster than light itself. Alien sensor operators across the system detected the pulse, but their instruments registered it as nothing more than background radiation. Many of them assumed the human weapon had malfunctioned before it could even fire properly. On the Eternal Dominion, Science Officer Texanol laughed out loud. "Chancellor, their weapon appears to have failed completely. Our sensors detected only a minor quantum fluctuation." "How disappointing," Vextar replied. "I was hoping for at least a small explosion to justify our trip here." Minutes passed with no visible change to the target planet. Alien crews began making jokes about human technology and placing new bets on how long it would take the humans to admit their weapon didn't work. Then Dr. Carter's voice cut through the chatter on all communication channels. Her tone was urgent and serious. "All vessels, this is Dr. Carter. I strongly recommend immediate withdrawal to a minimum safe distance of 10 light minutes. The cascade effect will begin in approximately 12 minutes. This announcement was met with laughter from most of the alien ships. 10 light minutes was an absurd distance for any known weapon. The aliens assumed the humans were trying to cover up their failure by pretending something dangerous was about to happen. High Chancellor Vextar opened a channel to mock the humans directly. "Dr. Carter, we appreciate your concern for our safety, but I believe your weapon has already demonstrated its capabilities. Perhaps you should consider returning to your laboratories for more research." "Chancellor," Carter replied, her voice tight with stress. "I am not joking. What you are about to witness will exceed anything in your databases. Please move your ships back." "We will remain at our current position," Vextar announced grandly. "The Zephyrian Empire does not retreat from human technology." Other alien commanders echoed similar sentiments. The Cathera bioship actually moved closer to get better sensor readings. The Helix Confederation crystal ship began playing victory songs, celebrating what they saw as human defeat. 17 minutes after activation, exactly as Dr. Tim Brooks had calculated, something changed. The target planet began to shake. At first, it looked like simple earthquake activity. The planet's surface trembled slightly, creating small cracks in the rocky terrain. Alien observers assumed this was just a minor side effect of whatever the humans had tried to do. But the shaking grew stronger. Within minutes, the cracks in the planet's surface became visible from space. They spread across continents in perfect, geometric patterns, as if someone was drawing lines on the world with an invisible pen. Dr. Tim Brooks spoke over the communication system, his voice filled with scientific excitement and growing horror. "The quantum resonance has destabilized the relationship between the planet's gravitational field and its core mass. The planet is beginning to tear itself apart from the inside." Alien scientists across the system suddenly became very interested in their sensor readings. The data they were receiving made no sense according to everything they knew about physics and weapons technology. On the living sphere, the Cathera crew felt their bioship's living hull begin to tremble with fear. The ship's biological sensors were detecting something that terrified every cell in its body, even though none of them understood what they were seeing. The planet's surface continued to crack and buckle. Massive chunks of rock the size of mountains began floating away from the world as its gravitational field became unstable. But this was not a normal explosion or impact. The planet was eating itself, converting its own matter into energy in a cascade reaction that grew stronger with each passing second. "This is impossible," whispered Science Officer Texnell aboard the Eternal Dominion. "Nothing can make a planet destroy itself like this." High Chancellor Vextar stared at the sensor readings with growing alarm. "How are they doing this? What kind of weapon affects gravity itself?" Dr. Carter's voice came over the communication system one more time. "All vessels, you are seeing a gravitational cascade failure. The effect will continue to spread until the planet has completely destroyed itself. The energy release will be equivalent to a stellar flare. I strongly urge you to retreat now." This time, nobody laughed. The alien commanders finally understood that they were not watching a failed human experiment. They were witnessing something that no civilization in galactic history had ever achieved. The humans had not just built a weapon that could destroy planets. They had created something that could make the universe itself turn against its own basic laws. As the target planet continued to tear itself apart, releasing energy on a scale that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers, the alien fleets finally began to move. But for many of them, it was already too late. The cascade effect was spreading faster than anyone had predicted, and space itself was becoming dangerous as the fundamental forces of physics went to war with each other. The destruction of planet Kepler 442c created a wave of energy that spread through space like ripples on a pond. But this was not ordinary energy. The gravitational cascade had torn apart the basic rules that held matter together, and now those broken rules were spreading to everything nearby. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the Liberty's Edge as the alien fleet suddenly realized they were in terrible danger. Ships that had been sitting calmly in space moments before were now scrambling to escape as fast as their engines could carry them. The Zephyrian dreadnought Eternal Dominion, the pride of their vast empire, was the first to try to run. Its massive engines lit up like blue stars as it attempted to reach faster than light speed. But something was wrong. The space around the ship was bending and twisting in ways that made normal travel impossible. "Admiral Walker," came Dr. Carter's voice over the communication system. "The cascade effect is spreading faster than we calculated. The disruption field is affecting the quantum structure of space itself." Admiral Greg Walker felt his stomach drop as he understood what that meant. "How far will it spread, Lisa?" "I don't know," she replied, and the fear in her voice was clear. "The other planets in the system are starting to show the same quantum instability. We might have affected the entire solar system." Through the windows of the Liberty's Edge, Walker could see the second planet in the system, an ice world called Kepler 442b. Cracks were appearing on its frozen surface, glowing with an eerie light as the planet's core began to destabilize. The ice was not melting. Instead, it was breaking apart at the molecular level, turning from solid matter into pure energy. The third planet, a gas giant named Kepler 442d, was collapsing inward on itself. Its massive clouds of hydrogen and helium were spinning faster and faster as the planet's gravitational field turned inside out. Lightning storms the size of Earth flickered across its surface as the gas giant fought a losing battle against its own gravity. The alien ships found themselves trapped in a nightmare that grew worse by the minute. The Kythera bioship, living, Spear was closest to the original target planet, and its crew was experiencing something no living beings had ever faced before. The ship's biological hull began to change color, shifting from its normal green to a sickly yellow. The living tissue that made up the ship's body was responding to the gravitational distortions by breaking down at the cellular level. Inside the ship, the Kythera crew members felt their own bodies beginning to shake as the quantum disruption interfered with their biological functions. "Emergency transmission from the living Spear," announced Communications Officer Amy Rodriguez aboard the Liberty's Edge. "They're requesting immediate assistance." Admiral Walker opened a channel to the bioship. The voice that came through was filled with panic and pain. "Human vessels, this is Commander Zixtal of the Living Spear. Our ship is dying. The gravitational effects are killing our biological systems. We cannot escape." "We're moving to assist," Walker replied immediately. "All human ships, prepare for emergency rescue operations." But even as he gave the order, Walker knew they might be too late. The living Spear was tearing itself apart as its own living tissue converted to energy. The beautiful bioship that had survived for centuries was being destroyed by forces it could not fight or understand. The crystal ship Harmonic Resonance was having different but equally serious problems. The Helix Confederation beings inside were creatures of pure energy living within crystal bodies. The gravitational cascade was interfering with their energy patterns, causing them to flicker in and out of existence. The musical tones that normally came from their ship had turned into discordant screams as the crystals themselves began to crack under the stress of warped spacetime. The beings inside sent desperate messages in their musical language, but the sounds were distorted and broken. High Chancellor Vextar aboard the Eternal Dominion was discovering that all of his advanced technology was useless against an enemy that attacked the basic structure of reality itself. His ship's quantum shields, designed to stop the most powerful weapons in the galaxy, had no effect on gravitational distortions that came from inside space itself. "Science Officer Texanol," Vextar shouted over the alarms that were now sounding throughout his ship. "What is our status?" "Chancellor, our engines are operating at only 30% efficiency. The space around us has become unstable. Our navigation computers cannot calculate a safe course to faster than light speed." "What about our weapons? Can we fight back against this effect?" Texanol looked at his instruments with confusion and terror. "Fight back against what, Chancellor? There is nothing to shoot at. The humans have weaponized physics itself. How do you fight the laws of nature?" Meanwhile, the dying red giant star at the center of the system was beginning to respond to the chaos around it. The gravitational disruptions from the 3 planets were pulling at the star's outer layers, causing massive solar flares to erupt from its surface. These flares added electromagnetic interference to the gravitational nightmare, making it even harder for the alien ships to escape. Dr. Lisa Carter worked frantically at her control station, trying to find some way to contain the effect before it spread even further. Her colleague, Dr. Tim Brooks, was running calculations as fast as he could, but the numbers kept changing as the cascade effect grew stronger. "Lisa," Tim called out, his voice tight with stress. "The gravitational wave has reached the star. If it destabilizes the nuclear fusion in the star's core, the explosion could affect nearby star systems." Carter felt her blood turn cold. They had created a weapon to destroy one planet, but they might have accidentally threatened multiple solar systems. The responsibility of what they had unleashed was almost too much to bear. "Can we stop it?" she asked. "I don't think so. The cascade has become self-sustaining. It's feeding off the gravitational energy of the planets and the star itself." On the bridge of the Liberty's Edge, Admiral Walker received reports from his other ships. The human fleet was managing to stay ahead of the expanding disruption field, but just barely. Their quantum drives, designed with different principles than alien technology, seemed to work better in the unstable space. "Admiral," called Captain Morris from the rescue ship New Hope, "we've managed to evacuate some survivors from the living sphere, but the bioship is breaking apart too fast. We can't save them all." Walker closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of responsibility for the alien deaths that were happening because of human technology. When he opened them again, his face was set with determination. "Save who you can, Captain Morris, and send a message to all surviving alien vessels. Tell them to follow our ships. We know how to navigate in unstable space." As the evacuation efforts continued, the alien survivors who made it aboard human ships stared at their rescuers with a mixture of gratitude and terror. They had come to watch humanity fail, but instead they had witnessed the birth of the most frightening military capability in galactic history. The humans had not just created a weapon that could destroy planets. They had created something that could make the universe itself turn hostile, and they were the only ones who knew how to survive in the chaos they had created. The nightmare was far from over. 3 days after the test, the survivors finally escaped the Kepler 442 system. Of the 43 alien warships that had come to watch humanity's failure, only 18 limped away from the devastation. Behind them, they left a graveyard of twisted metal and the remnants of 3 planets that had torn themselves apart. The space where Kepler 442c once existed was now a field of glowing debris that pulsed with unstable energy. The ice world had become a cloud of superheated gas, and the gas giant had collapsed into a dense core that warped space around it. Even the red giant star flickered unsteadily, its nuclear fires disrupted by gravitational waves that should not have existed. Admiral Greg Walker stood in the medical bay of the Liberty's Edge, watching human doctors treat alien survivors. Many of the rescued beings were in shock, unable to speak about what they had witnessed. Others muttered constantly about humans who could make planets eat themselves. Dr. Lisa Carter entered the medical bay, her face pale and tired. She had not slept since the test, spending every moment trying to understand the full scope of what her weapon had accomplished. "How are they doing?" she asked quietly. "Physically, most will recover," Walker replied, "but mentally I'm not sure they'll ever be the same. They keep talking about humans who wage war against the laws of physics." Carter nodded sadly. "I never wanted this, Greg. We built the weapon to protect humanity, not to become the galaxy's nightmare." "Too late for regrets now, Lisa. The question is what happens next." That question was being answered across the galaxy as news of the Kepler 442 incident spread. The surviving alien crews carried with them not just damage reports, but stories that would change how every civilization viewed humanity. High Chancellor Vexitar, barely alive in a medical pod aboard an escape shuttle, sent a desperate message to the Zephyrian Empire. His forearms shook as he recorded the transmission. "The humans have not built a weapon," he whispered, his voice hoarse from screaming during the escape. "They have discovered how to make reality itself into their enemy. They do not destroy planets. They convince the universe to murder them." When the message reached the Zephyrian homeworld, the entire government went into emergency session. The Mao, species that had ruled dozens of star systems for thousands of years, suddenly realized they were no longer the dominant power in the galaxy. Similar scenes played out across known space. The Cathara Collective, after losing their bioship and half its crew, immediately began developing new policies for dealing with humanity. Their insect-like minds, which normally thought in terms of swarm tactics and overwhelming numbers, could not process the idea of enemies who fought using the fundamental forces of creation. The crystal beings of the Helix Confederation experienced something they had never felt before: true fear. Their energy-based consciousness, which had existed for millions of years, suddenly understood that humans could unmake the very structure of space-time that allowed them to exist. Within 1 week of the test, 7 different alien civilizations sent secret messages to human space. They were not declarations of war or demands for explanations. They were offers of alliance. The Twilight Runners, a species of fast-moving mammals who had remained neutral in most galactic conflicts, were the first to make contact. Their message was simple and direct. "We wish to be friends with humanity. Please tell us what we must do to ensure your friendship." Captain Jake Morrison found himself busier than ever, as requests for meetings and treaties flooded in from across the galaxy. Species that had barely acknowledged human existence were now desperate to establish diplomatic relations. Others, like the Mineral Lords, offered to share their most advanced technologies in exchange for guarantees that human weapons would never be used against them. But not all the galaxy's reaction was friendly. The Void Hunters, a militant species that had conquered 12 star systems through brutal warfare, declared humanity to be an existential threat that must be eliminated. They began mobilizing their fleets for a preemptive strike against human space. This declaration had an unexpected effect. 3 other species, including the powerful Stellar Federation, immediately offered military assistance to humanity. They had no love for humans, but they were terrified of what might happen if the Void Hunters actually succeeded in making humanity angry. Dr. Carter received a private message from the Galactic Council requesting her immediate appearance before an emergency session. The tone of the message was very different from the casual dismissal they had shown before the test. Now, the most powerful beings in the galaxy were using words like "please" and "if you would be so kind." When she arrived at the council station, Carter found a very different atmosphere than during their first visit. The massive chamber was packed with representatives from every known species. Many of them looked nervous or frightened. Some would not even make eye contact with her. The emergency session began with High Chancellor Vextar, still recovering from his injuries, addressing the chamber from a medical support chair. "Honored members," he said, his voice weak but clear. "We have gathered to discuss the implications of what we witnessed at Kepler 442. Humanity has demonstrated a capability that exceeds our understanding of what is possible." Dr. Carter was asked to explain how the stellar disruption array worked. She tried to use simple language, but most of the aliens could not grasp the concepts she described. The idea of weaponizing quantum field relationships was beyond their scientific knowledge. "The important thing to understand," she concluded, "is that humanity seeks only peaceful coexistence with all species. We have no desire to threaten or harm anyone." Ambassador Kelthara of the Cathara Collective, one of the few survivors from the living spear, spoke next. Her voice trembled as she addressed the chamber. "Dr. Carter speaks of peace, but we have seen what human peace looks like. They do not conquer worlds, they do not need to. They can simply make worlds cease to exist." The debate that followed lasted for 2 days. Some species demanded restrictions on human research. Others wanted humanity expelled from the galaxy entirely. But the practical reality was becoming clear to everyone. Humanity could not be forced to do anything they did not want to do. The final vote was unanimous. Humanity would be granted immediate full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and protections that status provided. They would also be given a permanent seat on the Council's ruling committee, making them one of the 5 most powerful voices in galactic government. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood before the Galactic Council once again. This time, He was taking the oath of office as humanity's permanent representative. The other species watched him with a mixture of respect and fear that would never entirely fade. Admiral Walker, promoted to head of the new Galactic Defense Initiative, worked with alien commanders to develop new protocols for military cooperation. Many species offered to share their most advanced technologies with humanity, hoping that friendship would protect them from ever facing human weapons. Dr. Carter returned to her laboratory, but her work had changed. Instead of developing new weapons, she now focused on understanding the long-term effects of the Kepler 442 incident. The disrupted space in that system continued to show unusual properties months after the test, serving as a permanent reminder of what humanity had accomplished. Late at night, when her colleagues had gone to sleep, Carter would look out at the stars and think about the responsibility her species now carried. They had proven that human determination and ingenuity could overcome any technological disadvantage, but they had also become the most feared civilization in the galaxy. The alien nightmares were not about the destruction they had witnessed. They were about what humanity might create next. In their dreams, they saw Dr. Carter and her team working on new equations, new ways to turn the fundamental forces of reality into tools of war. And in those nightmares, they realized that humanity had only just begun to show the galaxy what they were capable of accomplishing when they set their minds to it. The age of human dominance in the galaxy had begun, not through conquest or colonization, but through the simple demonstration that humans could make the universe itself afraid.